Where will we go? Where will we go now? When the Yo, Izzy, are you kidding me?
And we are just about ready to jump inside the ladies' room this morning. And of course, like I told you guys for the past couple of days, we will be joined by Dr. Ralph Gonsalves, Prime Minister of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and of course, current chair of the Conference of Heads of Government of the Caribbean Community, Caricom. We are also live on Facebook, so you can check out our Facebook page and be part of the conversation this morning. So we are just about ready to go. So without any further ado, let me say special good morning to our guest this morning, the Honorable Prime Minister of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Good morning, Dr. Gonzalez, and welcome to Power 95.
Good morning. Well, most people call me Comrade Ralph, eh?
Okay, so I'm gonna do that.
You hear me? And who is this? You have to tell me who is this charismatic, magnificent daughter of the civilization. You have to give me your bill of particulars, girl. Why then?
We
Tell,
gotta do
tell,
that.
I have a good brethren listening to you here, you know.
Who is
Came to
it?
talk to me about something. Big
That's
Grass.
on camera. Let me see who it is.
You want to hear about Big Grass?
Yeah, let me hear Big Grass. Let me see Big Grass.
Yeah, see Big Grass, man.
Right here, baby. Black Ethiopian man watching you over there, you know.
wait.
Royal.
Big Grass. When the whole COVID and Corona business go about its business, you are invited to Grenada to come see me. All right?
All right, baby. No
All
problem.
right.
You stay nice.
Where's Big Grass?
I'm
We
not
try
saying
to find Big Grass.
Big Grass had to put himself in the frame.
Where's Big Grass there?
I'm right here now, baby. Yeah, you see me good?
I'm
Oh, Black Ethiopian man, eh?
Okay, tell me that again. I missed it.
You're saying he black and beautiful like this black and beautiful Ethiopian woman.
All right.
Thank you, Ross.
Yes.
I mean, we always go out doing what you all don't expect in this room. That was a different kind of introduction. I really enjoy that. So, how are you doing, Comrade Ralph? How are you doing? How's everything in St. Vincent?
I'm doing fine, and I want to heal up my friend Keith.
You have to. You have to. No perspective
Yes.
board. Well, of course,
You and I talked this morning.
you did. You see, that's why they
You and I
say
talked this morning on
that's why they say it's not good to put your mouth in big people's affairs, because we were going back and forth a couple of weeks ago, COVID time, between the two of you business regarding this boat that came to Caricom and who's sending food and that's not your place and rah, rah, rah.
water under the bridge. Water under the bridge.
Understand? So that's why you got to leave certain things sometimes to handle it. So, of course, there's a lot we want to talk about. A lot has been happening on your end, and we want to bring our listeners and viewers up to speed regarding what's happening. So I want to highlight you a bit first before we move on to other pertinent issues from around the region. You are one of the long-standing prime ministers in the region. You've been at the helm for quite a number of years. What would you say influenced you getting into politics?
I think my socialization, the way I was brought up. I was born in 1946, before the era of one man, one vote. And there was, in my community, I grew up on the fringes of a plantation on which my father, who had left school at class 3 in the primary school, where he used to work as a watchman. And the village where I grew up, stifling under colonialism, stifling under plantocratic rule, plantation economy, trash houses, no pipe-borne water in your home, pit toilet. In fact, I didn't have pipe-borne water in my home until I was 14 years old. Things of that kind, and you're socialized in a particular situation. And my village raised me,
Mm-hmm.
so I developed a strong community spirit.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I won a place in the grammar school when I was 12 years old, that put me on a path which led me to where I am, and I developed my political consciousness. I think it would be fair to say that I was born with a rebel seed, so that questioning things always and how we can do better,
Mm-hmm.
and that has driven me. And my politics is formed very influenced by the poor and the working people, the peasantry, the nation as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
Strongly grounded in our Caribbean civilization, and deeply committed to regional integration, international peace and security, and for equality and justice, and very much influenced too by the Christian teachings, as I am by socialist principles. In the Old Testament, the prophet Micah posed the question, "What does the good Lord require of you?" And he answered three things. If we manage these, my dear comrade sister, we'll do well. The answer: to do justly, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with our God.
Mm-hmm.
And another Old Testament prophet, Jeremiah, in the book of Lamentations, which is not really so much about lamentations, though it's a lamentations because you're in Babylonian captivity, the Hebrew people. But what it talks to is optimism, morning by morning, new mercies we see. All that we need, thy hand hath provided. Great is thy faithfulness. So I'm always optimistic amidst all the challenges: COVID, colonialism, imperialism, the difficulties of hardship and poverty. Um, you know, I feel that we can always be doing better than we are doing,
Mm-hmm.
and to live in real hope that better will always be done. And
So
when
where did the comrade part of it come from?
well, during my early political operations, I was a member of ULIMO, Ulu United Liberation Movement, which was a left-wing organization influenced strongly by socialism, and quite radical. And in those days, you're fighting very strongly colonialism and anti-imperialism. And they say, well, Ralph is a communist. He's a comrade. So I accept that I'm a comrade. And those who thought that it was going to be a derogatory term, through life and living, it has been turned into a term of endearment, meaning identification and connection with the poor, the marginalized, the disadvantaged, the underprivileged. And that relates also to the underdeveloped or developing nations, confronting powerful countries who want to interfere in our business and to tell us what we must do and what we must not do. Well, I am resolute against all of those things, people talking to us in that manner. And though over the years I've had to make accommodations because of practical things, day by day I'm engaged in creative resistance. So it's a sensible, practical approach of creative resistance and and accommodation, all in the interest of the people. And you have to make compromises along the way, particularly in a parliamentary democracy, and the nature of how the system is constructed, and I accept it as it is, but making amendments and changes and alterations, and to imbue it with a certain spirit, and that that is that is how it is. This is
There,
how I'm at work. I'm talking to you from the cabinet room. This is how I go to work.
as if
You
you
know,
use the
I
shop jack.
I, I want the parliament. I want I want the parliament to do away with the jacket and tie.
And I really believe
So
as well,
that's
the whole old colonialism thing,
you
those
know.
things got to go. We need to update the system right now. But I like the comrade part too.
But
Now,
that's
what time?
basically my background. I have been a political activist since 1968. As president of the Students' Union, the Guild of Undergraduates in Jamaica, 22 years old. And I led what I've been advised is the largest protest
Mm-hmm.
in the country in Jamaica since 1938, the massive anti-colonial uprisings. They had banned Walter Rodney from returning. Walter Rodney of blessed memory, who was assassinated in Guyana in 1980. And up to now, the 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 perpetrators have not been brought, but neither the perpetrators or conspirators have been brought to justice. And whichever new Guyana government comes into play, we want them to address the justice for Rodney's family,
Mm-hmm.
for Pat, for his widow Pat, for the children, Shaka and Asha and Kanini and the grandchildren whom Walter never saw. But so that on that day in Jamaica, I was beaten and tear gassed, and in October the 16th, 1968, and I resolved that in my life I am going to do something about what I saw was wrong. And I haven't, my commitment has not yet wavered. And I'm 73 years old. And I hope that commitment never wavers
I'm glad that you
and until
raised
the
that.
good Lord is ready for
I
me,
wanted to ask.
until I go to Beulah Land.
There'll come a time when you'll have to step down from frontline politics, or your people may decide, what, it's time to give someone else a chance, whatever the reasons and how it happened. What would your legacy be? What would you be remembered for?
That I serve the people to the best of my ability, with honesty and sincerity, doing justice and loving mercy, and walking humbly with my God. And in practical terms, though we have achieved phenomenal things in all spheres of human activity in our country and physical infrastructure, the education revolution which I have piloted in this country, which has transformed the country over the last 20 years, I believe that in years to come, when the dust is settled and when I'm no longer around, and therefore no temptation to curse me and verbally abuse me for partisan political reasons, everybody would settle and say, well, Ralph played a very good hand in making sure everybody get educated up to the highest levels possible, from from early childhood all the way up to university, and open up the gates.
What would you say some of the challenges that you've had to face throughout your tenure as prime minister that stands out?
Well, first of all, there's an ongoing challenge that we have a legacy of underdevelopment in all of these countries as a consequence of native genocide and the enslavement of African bodies. The, the legacy still remains. If you go into the northeast of St. Vincent, it's the poorest area in the country. That's where the indigenous people, the Garifuna, the Kalinago and the Garifuna, that's where where British colonialism carried out large scale genocide against them and marooned them after they defeated them in what was a 30-odd-year guerrilla battle against the British colonization. And the legacy is still there. The legacy of underdevelopment. And similarly, with the enslavement of Africans. And we have to, day by day, we seek to correct this legacy. But we need help, more help than we are getting. And we think that the reparations, the call for reparations, is to make sure that we get the recompense to correct this legacy of native genocide and the enslavement of Africans. So that's an ongoing challenge. Then there is the challenge of modern imperialism, neocolonialism, the unequal trade arrangements, matters connected to climate change, which is existential for small islands, and that we don't contribute anything to talk about to global warming. Yet we're on the front lines. We saw what happened to Grenada with Ivan, and so on and so forth. These are major strategic challenges. There are other things, the usual things which people preoccupy themselves with, and journalists very often preoccupy themselves with. Ralph says this, Keith Mitchell says that. In St. Vincent, James Mitchell, Annim Eustace, Lorraine Friday, they said these things, Ralph said the other things. But very often, a lot of that discussion is on sideshows. I am addressing fundamental challenges. I'm not dealing with issues touching and concerning the vanity of man and woman. Who said this and who didn't say that. And while we are fighting each other, the legacy of underdevelopment in relation to native genocide and Africa, the enslavement of African remains, climate change issues remain, all the problems of sustainable development to achieve by 2030 the sustainable development goals, which we signed on to get rid of extreme hunger and poverty by the year 2030, dealing with pandemics. Look, we have this problem. We couldn't even get the basic, some basic medication. We couldn't get the PPEs, the personal protective equipment. We couldn't even get the equipment to do the PCR test or to do other things, to get the supplies, because wealthy countries kind of corral these things.
Grabbed up all.
And you will have a situation where Venezuela got a lot of rapid tests. So what happened is this: they sent a set to St. Vincent. I so happy they got them from some other donor, Venezuela. They bought them from somewhere, and of the little that they have, they gave us 3,000. I went to the airport to collect to be part of the team to collect them. I so happy. The thing is about Ralph collecting a box or boxes,
And not what's in the box.
as though it's demeaning to me to collect boxes. I always work with my hands, work with my brain, I work with my hands too. There's none, but the sideshow discussion that takes you. Why Ralph had to go there? Why he didn't have on a mask when he went and pick it up? Important discussions perhaps, but nowhere rising to the level. Why is it that Venezuela gave us these things, and the same Venezuela, the United States of America, is engaged in sanctioning them, weaponizing trade, weaponizing the monetary, the financial transfer system, making it difficult for us to get any resources from Petrocaribe because PDVSA is sanctioned. Petrocaribe transactions are sanctioned. No money can be done. No ships can come. Those are major issues, not the sideshows.
And people are known for being really outspoken and blunt about these issues. Comrade,
Well,
upon
look,
winning championship with Caricom,
let
you
me say
said
this.
something I found to be
United
very
States of
interesting.
America.
You said, and I quote, member countries remain on equally yoke in practical terms. Break this down for us. What were you referring to when you made that comment?
Well, the point is this: the revised in Caricom, the revised Treaty of Chagaramos has Chapter 7, which has special provisions for developed for less developed countries, disadvantaged countries, regions, and sectors. And I'm dealing with disadvantaged countries, like the smaller countries, the more vulnerable countries, or members of the currency union, the OECS, Eastern Caribbean Currency Union. But the Trinidad and Tobago gets far more out of Caricom than any other country in Caricom. That is established. And I am not making an anti-Trinidad point. My mother, God bless her, was a Trinidadian. My wife is a Trinidadian. So I'm not, and Trinidad and Tobago is fantastic, and we have excellent relations. With Barbados gets more benefits from CARICOM than we do. This doesn't mean that we don't get benefits. But what I'm saying is this: we have to have a special carve out for the OECS inside of the revised treaty. Because even though everybody is benefiting, there are some people who are benefiting far more than others.
Yeah,
And that we must make sure, like some instruments which exist, like for instance, the CARICOM Development Fund, that there are some countries some countries which are supposed to contribute don't want to contribute to the extent that they ought to. So that countries like Grenadines and Vincent, St. Lucia, and Dominica can get more resources from the CARICOM Development Fund. In the revised Treaty of Chagaramos, in Chapter 7, Article 158, it says, it is hereby established a CARICOM Development Fund. It doesn't say it will be established, It is established. And while it is established, it has to have resources to function. So the trading arrangements I'm talking about resource alignments and allocations.
Mm-hmm.
And that is what I talk about, being unequally yoked.
Got you. Definitely. While the rest of the region, I want to switch gears a bit to talk about COVID-19 and, of course, the region and CARICOM, how we're dealing with that. While the rest of the region was basically on lockdown with curfews, etc., you chose to handle the pandemic differently. As a matter of fact, I think it was last weekend I saw a video out of St. Vincent showing this almost carnival-like atmosphere. How are the people of St. Vincent coping with the pandemic, and what are some of the measures you took, and why you decided to go that route instead of locking down completely?
Well, let me say this. The fact that we didn't have a state of emergency, the fact that we didn't have a lockdown, the fact that we didn't have a curfew, it is not, I'm not saying that what we did was is universally applicable, or that other countries in the region should have done it. So I'm not saying what we did is a better approach than what anybody else did.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just saying that this was the approach which is appropriate to our own circumstances. For instance, let's take curfew. I saw in some places, and I'm not just talking the Caribbean, other places I would read about, that there's a curfew which goes from 8 p.m. to 6 a.m. So I asked myself the question, what happened? This virus is Nicodemus. It visits only at night. Why we must have curfew? Eh? But during the days, all right. So what I then do is this. I I know you laugh because I'm sorry. I grew up among the folk, so that I use folk imageries.
Understood.
Sometimes it gets me into trouble.
You'll
What
be
we gonna do? An old man in trouble now and again is no big thing. You have to make
we can
no
work with
allowance for that. Uh, if I'm wrong in this struggle for 52 years, you gotta give me some.
you gotta
You
give you
know,
some leeway. We can give you some slack.
you gotta give me a little slack. You gotta give me a little slack. All right? No. So what I do? Why do we have the crowds in St. Vincent nights? Music. So what I say, I'm banning music, amplified music in public places or in a private premises where the public have access. That takes care of the crowds. I don't have to curfew. So that if you, my dear sister, is late visiting your grandmother, you don't have to say, "Oh, Heavenly Father, it's now 8 o'clock. It's half an hour home. The police catch me. They go lock me up."
Speed to go
I-
home.
How, how I could make a criminal out of a law-abiding person who went to visit the grandmother. Similarly, with a state of emergency, it's a serious thing. You take away people's fundamental rights and freedoms. They're suspended. And at the same time, you remove the writ of habeas corpus. And a lot of policemen in some countries use it as an opportunity to settle village grievances. A fella, a guy, as you see in the Caribbean, found a policeman in the village with his woman. The policeman said, "Boy, I'm not limited anymore by holding you for 48 hours. I could keep you inside of the village cell for 72 hours or for 4 days by the time people find out about you. And I ain't got nothing to answer by because the constitutional provisions are suspended." Then a man going to the mountain, a man going to his lands. Small farmers in St. Vincent, they have a 3 acres of land. In addition to growing sweet potatoes and yams, and have some fruits and vegetables, they have 2 head of cattle, a couple of sheep and goat. So they go 6 o'clock in the morning to their lands. The first thing they do is they change the animals, especially during the drought, which we had at the time of COVID,
Mhm.
because the animal feed on place. Because you have to make sure the grass grows back fairly quickly. Because you have limited land. So you change them before you go to deal with your yam or deal with your sweet potatoes. And you come home because you're out there so long since 6 o'clock in the morning, 7 o'clock. You come home at 1 o'clock. But you're going back to the mountain to do one thing at about 5:30 to change your cattle them again because you don't want to keep them at the same spot for 24 hours. So what I must do? Criminalize an activity for a farmer to do that, or to have a set of instructions which require the farmer to have a PhD to understand those instructions that a man in Clay Valley can't trace in to catch some sprat and some jacks? Or you tell me that he could walk on line. The only line the fisherman can walk on is when he go out with his pirogue, is to throw the line to catch his snapper and the tuna.
Mhm.
So, what? Having taken cognizance of all of those things, we then say, what is the tool which we have? What are the tools we have? Education. And every day I was on the radio saying, listen, we have to do this thing properly. Do the basic things. Wash your hands. Take care of your personal hygiene, and so on and so forth. And very importantly, put a lot of boots on the ground. Boots on the ground epidemiology, so that if anybody have to do your contact tracing, you can do it properly. In St. Vincent, case number 2, it took within 48 hours, we had contact traced 164 persons who had connected with that person who came in from the United States of America. Boots on the ground epidemiology, and you have proper planning and procedures in place.
Second, we seem to have a little issue there. Let's see if we can get that back. Internet issues. Okay, let me just see if we can get Comrade Gonsalves back in the conversation. Yeah, we seem to have lost him there for a second. But I've got quite a number of questions still to ask. So as soon as we
Easter weekend, I will tell you this.
all right.
I left the Prime Minister's office, the Prime Minister's residence, on Thursday evening, and I went to the countryside. My personal house in the bush. I alone live up there. I live in the bush like a Rasta man, but with internet. I have a stream next to me, and I go up there and I cool out. I stayed up there Good Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. Monday evening, I'm coming down at about 5 o'clock, coming back to town. It's 22 miles away. Going and coming on the road, I didn't count more than 8 vehicles, including mine. People obeyed. They didn't go to the rivers to lime, and we got plenty of river. They didn't go to the beach. It was an amazing exercise of discipline by a people who over Easter, they do two things: Christian reflection and jollification. In respect of the Easter regatta in Beckway and the Easter Valley in Union Island, I cancel those.
Mhm.
And churches, we say, look, listen, do your stuff online, do it on radio, and so on. People shared services and the like. It was magnificent, I'm telling you, my dear comrade sister.
Mhm.
Extraordinary discipline by the people. And when I saw that, I say we are on a good track. Some days there may be ill discipline, but it's not perfection. You say, listen, we're getting a little out of hand, We have to pull it back.
Mhm.
And people realize it. The minibuses, we gave certain instructions within 24 hours, the minibuses complying. We do sanitizing of the minibuses, a state program of sanitizing of the minibuses, and so on and so forth. So at the airport, we kept the airport open from 8 o'clock in the morning till 4 o'clock in the afternoon, because Amerijet has to come. We have to communicate between the Grenadine Islands, and the RSS plane has to come to take the samples, and then there were the occasional charters of one kind or another. So that's how we did it. I'm not saying that what we did, it could be done with anywhere else.
You did what
Again,
you think would work for you.
if you read the book of Chronicles, you will see that there's a description of all the leaders of the 12 tribes of Israel. Big Ras here knows about 12 tribes. There is one of the lesser known leaders of one of the tribes, Issachar, Issachar. You know what the book of Chronicles says about him? Issachar knew the times and he acted accordingly. If you know the times, my dear comrade sister, and you act accordingly, you can't go wrong, but you gotta know the times, and you gotta know your people, and you have to put your trust in them and they in you. Even when they put their trust in me in fighting COVID, you think all of them gonna vote for me? No. No, not at all. Not at all. They will say, boy, Ralph, you handle the COVID thing well, but boy, I'm not a I can't go and put an X for the star because my mother, my grandmother, my great grandmother tell me never put an X for the star. Historic reasons, all kind of different things. And I accept that. And I don't have to have any enmity with anybody about that. Those are your choices. But people realize that we are in this together and we acted sensibly. The question of well, you may say, well, Ralph, while you were doing this, we know you were getting a lot of bashing
I was
on
about to ask that too.
social media and on partisan radio station. I hear the bashing. I don't live on Mars. But one thing I tell you, if I'm in a room and 1,000 people have a different opinion than me, I'm not influenced by 1,000 persons. I'm influenced by right reason, by the facts,
Gotcha.
by the science, by the law, against a bedrock of principles of governance. Now, you may say, I'm listening to you now, and I'm arguing with you, and I'm having a discussion with you. But unless you can convince me on the basis of right reason, the science, the facts, the law, against a bedrock of principles of good governance, you could have 1,000. I realize not with me. You may say, but that 1,000, because of democracy, may say they don't want you to lead. And I say, well, that's fine. I have a life after this, I have my house up gas in the bush. I just go up there and cool out. But when you get at me and I go up there and you mash it up, don't come they can't ask me, because I done. I talk to you if you head hard and you don't want to hear.
You
Leave me with my fruits around me. Leave me with the bush. Leave me with my moringa. Leave me with my whatever I have up there,
I know where you're going, and we're
and
going there
leave
shortly as well. I have to go there with you on that one up in the hills. But
next door and bed. Just leave me alone.
so in terms of the Liat situation, though, a message from Prime Minister of Antigua and Barbuda, Gaston Brown, to Caricom, alluded to some untruths he said that you made. He was responding to a July 9th interview where you addressed several concerns as it relates to the proposed liquidation of Liat, with the four major shareholders, unanimously agreeing with the board's recommendation to liquidate the airline. What is your candid view when it comes to that? When it comes to the future of
You mean the one when my partner, the
Island
one
travel?
when my partner Gaston, the one where my partner Gaston misunderstood everything what I was saying and said that he wouldn't say, because I'm an elder statesman, he wouldn't say that I'm a notorious is the word he used, notorious liar.
Yeah,
But he said it nevertheless.
it's implied.
No, the
Implied.
point is this, that everybody agreed that we should liquidate. But Gaston also said that he would like to have Liat 1974 replaced by Liat 2020. But that issue, he said it, and I said he said that, but that issue was not on the agenda. Let me explain to you what was on the agenda. And you have a couple of minutes. Let me just back up a little.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
I back up a little. On the 23rd of July, the board of directors of Liat, chaired by former Prime Minister Owen Atta, the board sent me a resolution signed by him and the company secretary, Diane Sherland. The resolution said this, that they had received an analysis of Liat's finances, and they came to the conclusion that Liat was unable to pay its debts. And as a result, they are recommended to the shareholders that Liat be wound up. I get that as chairman of the shareholders. What do? My legal responsibility. I call a meeting of the major shareholders, the four governments, which control 92% of the shares in Liat. Mia Motley of Barbados says, listen, and she has almost 50% of the shares, Barbados. She says, I have no more money to put into Liat. I have a tough IMF program. That's the end of the road for me. Gaston didn't step up to the plate with any money. Roosevelt scared from Dominica didn't. I didn't. So I say, well, that's the end of it. Is either we're going to have an orderly liquidation or a disorderly one. And we all agreed to have a liquidation. Gaston also said that he wants it to be replaced by Liat 2020. The legal advice which came to us from the board secretary, who is a lawyer, Diane Sholan, is that at the same meeting where you're agreeing to the dissolution of Liat, that you're going to agree to setting up a Liat 2020, it would be so transparent with the same shareholders. Wouldn't that be an attempt to see if you can, in some way, disadvantage those whom Liat 1974 Limited owes? And all kind of legal consequences flow from that. That's why that issue about Liat 2020 was not discussed there. Of course, subsequently, Gaston went to Parliament and amended the Companies Act for rather than having liquidation, to have an administration, like Chapter 11 bankruptcy, something similar, and where the Minister of Finance in Antigua can give the direction for the company to be put into administration. Because that amendment took place subsequently. So when I said it, Gaston said no, that he didn't agree to liquidate. He did agree to liquidate, and he also agreed, he also advanced that he wanted to have a Liat 2020. But we couldn't discuss Liat 2020 to replace at that stage. Now, we had a meeting last night, yesterday evening, where Gaston presented his proposal. And nobody, as I told Gaston, I certainly don't want to stand in his way. Barbados says they don't want to stand in his way. In fact, I had told Gaston when he called me after that statement had been made. In fact, between me and you, let me tell you this, and those who are listening. I said, Gaston, you went overboard there. I say, you know the test for it? Ask your wife. Did I not go overboard with my friend Ralph? In saying what I had say? He started to laugh. Because I know his wife, she's a good woman. She'll say, yes, Gaston, you overstep your bounds there a little. More than a little. But that's water under the bridge. The Saturday after Gaston and I spoke the Friday night, 2 weeks ago, he went to Parliament and he said he had a conversation with me. It was a good conversation and many things were clarified. And I got different reports. Some people say he liked me, others say he loved me. But anyway, he said that I the man, I the Prime Minister he admire most in the region, and that nobody must come between us, and we'll be friends till the end. You know what I mean? But the point is this: I wouldn't tell you what I told him, because all I could tell you in a private conversation, believe me, I could give you as much as you can give me. I'm a son of this Caribbean civilization. And when you're friends and you disagree on something and we talk privately, the words which you may use is robust. That would be euphemism. That sometimes the language could be robust. Sometimes. And you can just imagine what language that is.
So when it comes to the future, though, of inter-island travel, which is so crucial for regional integration, what is your view on that, and what are your thoughts on the way forward?
Well, there are five options. Well, I have spoken and said, look, we have 4 airlines in the region, and I've written a letter to my colleagues in the region. There are 4 airlines. There's Caribbean Airlines has 12 jets, and they have 7 ATR 72s and 2 more at hand that they can leave. They said to me that they could cover 80% of LIAT's pre-COVID 2019 network. Let us even say that they can't cover, in addition to the Tobago Air Bridge, that they can't cover 80%. Let us say they could cover 65, 70%. That's still a substantial coverage. Then we have Inter-Caribbean, an airline in Turks and Caicos. They operate in the north, the west of the Caribbean. Northern Caribbean, Western Caribbean. They have about 15 aircraft, I've been advised, from turboprop to 50-seater jets. They have come down as far south as St. Lucia. I know they have made applications to go to the various countries in the Eastern Caribbean, including St. Vincent, including Grenada. And approvals are on its way through the normal processes. And then there are 2 airlines owned by Vincentians. One Caribbean, which was heroic during COVID. They have a 19-seater and they have 2 30-seater Saab. And I've seen the letter from the lessors where they can get a 3rd Saab. Those are 30-seaters. Then SVG Air, which has 6 Twin Otters, 19-seaters. They do fantastic work. They're workhorses. They work on smaller routes in the Northern Caribbean and down here between St. Vincent and the Grenadines going down to Grenada. They go Barbados, St. Lucia. So those are 4 which are actually up and running. Well, certainly SVG Air has started doing work, and for a week now, the One Caribbean has been going St. Vincent, St. Lucia, Barbados. They're waiting approvals to do the other routes. They've done to right now. I've been told 20-something. After I spoke to Keith this morning, Prime Minister of Grenada, 20-something, I learned that there are 20-something Grenadian students in Barbados who want to go to Grenada, and One Caribbean has to take them. I think they're just waiting on the approvals. So, and then of course, there is LIAT 1974 Limited in Administration, which Gaston wants to bring as the new LIAT. That would also be on the road. But what Barbados and St. Vincent and the Grenadines say to Gaston yesterday is that we will sell you our shares for $1. But we want to sell the planes, either to you or to anybody else. The 3 planes which CDB has a charge on, and that you can lease them back if you want, or you can buy them. Right now, with a price with the CDB, we might get about $10 million for each of the planes. Maybe a less, maybe more. I don't know what the market is. We gotta get that valued. But on the books last year, they were valued at 10 million US, I've been advised. So it's 30 million, assuming it's 10 million. St. Vincent and Grenadines has 11.5% of the debt. So you give me, out of that, that's 3 point something million dollars. Barbados has 50 point something percent of the debt. They will get 15 million something. Antigua has 33% of the debt. They will get 1/3. They will get $10 million from that. Dominica is 3.7% of the debt. For the planes I'm talking about, because there are other debts which dealt with other things, because only the planes are the assets. The other money you just have to continue to service that. So if we are sending a letter to CDB today, the Attorney General of Barbados, I've asked him to draft the letter and send it. For all I know, while I'm talking to you, the letter may be outside at the office with my executive secretary. And we go ahead, and I this new LIAT, whatever it is, Gaston's put forward his proposal. I don't want to stand in his way. I don't want to be inside of his hair. Nothing of the sort. And I wish him all the best with it.
Okay. So
And
before we go, though, I got about two or three more questions. One that is very important, and I've had two other prime ministers on the show, and I've asked them. And a while ago, you made a reference to up in the hills. Now, as the current chairman of Caricom, we've heard this. We've been
you just broke up. I didn't hear you there.
The issue of marijuana.
You broke up there. I didn't hear you.
Marijuana. You being the current chairman of Caricom, is this a conversation Caricom is prepared to have on decriminalizing marijuana and not sending a man to prison for a little spliff on the road or 2 ounce in his possession and not being able to use, seeing that the world is benefiting from it?
The record will show that in addition to this man we're talking to, who carried the issue at Caricom for the establishment of the Caricom Reparations Commission, I'm the man who carried the issue in 2014 for the establishment of the Caricom Marijuana Commission, which has reported. And some countries have done more work than others. And we in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, we have not, the issue which is normally put about decriminalization or legalization, that's a journalistic shorthand. If you read the International Narcotics Convention, the issue which has to be addressed is depenalization. Because the convention of 1960, until it is changed, says if you have any in your possession, it is illegal. But you don't have to be punished for it. And you don't have to have a criminal record for it. And we have passed a law which says that if you have 2 ounces in your possession or less, that you can't be arrested for it, you can't be charged for it, you can't be sent to prison for it, and you can't have any record for it. In fact, what we do is to give you, the policeman has a card. On one side of it, the card tells you that marijuana may be injurious to your health, and here is where you can get information. And on the flip side, it says that because you're under 18, or you may have some condition which would make it a problem for you, that you may need to have counseling, here's where you get counseling. But if you say it is not your marijuana, when the policeman meet you and say, no, it's Ralph who did put it in your bag, and you want to go to court, well, then when you go to court, the court could charge you up to $500, but it's like a civil debt. The court can't send you to jail, and you don't have a record for it. And similarly, we introduce an offense that you can't smoke in public, smoke marijuana in public, in a public place. But the law expressly says that your dwelling house is not a public place. So if you inside of your dwelling house with your husband or your partner and you're smoking some ganja while you're relaxing, nobody could come and do you anything because that's not a public place. And as the Minister of National Security, I have the authority to declare a particular public event not a public place for the purpose of that it is private for the purpose of the offenses regarding marijuana. Because if you're going to have a concert with Buju Banton at Annesville or Victoria Park or Queen's Park,
You know.
everybody knows that people going to smoke ganja. I don't live on Mars, so I will declare a concert like that a place which is not a public place, so that you smoke it. I have gone. Look, let me tell you this. People, you take for instance, and Big Ras here will know this. There's an organization in St. Vincent called the Ancient Churchical Order of Nyabingi. 10 years ago, I gave a lease to the Ancient Churchical Order of Nyabingi, some state lands up in the bush. And they have a tabernacle there above a place called Boaden. Now, they inside of the tabernacle, you smoke in the tabernacle. That's a religious institution, establishment. You can't get charged for it. Police can't come there and lock you up under our law, which we have passed. Look, there are too many innocent people, too many law-abiding people who get locked up for marijuana that shouldn't get locked up for marijuana. And you know what happened is this? If you study this history carefully, in 1970, when this thrust came, well, really 1968, when Richard Nixon was elected President of the United States, he elected on a law and order ticket. And in the law and order ticket, say no drugs, no ganja. But the law and order which he ran, especially in the deep south of those United States, was to make sure that the dog whistle racism. He was basically telling the white folks in the deep south of those United States, you see this thing I talking about, the smoking ganja, and all this thing on law and order, and the war on drugs? The white folks knew that that was a euphemism for locking up young black people. And they brought that war against drugs throughout the Caribbean and other parts of the world. And we all in the Caribbean accepted hook, line, and sinker. Until they're now telling us, 20-something of their states, saying, no, we have to legalize this thing. So we followed suit. This is one of our problems. We have too many mimic men and women, and we don't use our independent thought processes, and we run into too much difficulties too many times. Now, this doesn't say that marijuana is not something which could affect person's health adversely. But marijuana also has healing properties. So you have to advise against the possible health dangers of using it and the need for counseling for youths and the like. And of course, you can't have it around schools and so on. All that is illegal. But marijuana also has medical properties. Look, there was an incongruence in St. Vincent. There was once an attorney general in St. Vincent. In his years in England studying law, he was in too many cheap accommodation, and later in his life, arthritis humbug him. And he will tell me, I say, brethren, how your arthritis going? He say, well, is the ganja tea, what does help? I say, if the police come, get all the ganja. He say, nobody going to up for ganja. Nobody going to lock up the attorney general. Then I will tell you this. My mother, who was a Legion of Mary woman, in the Catholic Church, the only thing higher than Legion of Mary is the Pope. That is the backbone of the church. They go out on Sundays and Saturdays and help the poor, and to clean people and so on. My mother lived until she was 98. And one day, after I was Prime Minister, I went into her kitchen. I said, Mommy, what is happening here? Somebody is here smoking ganja. She said, no, I boiling it. She says, the only thing give me relief from the arthritis. I said, but Mommy, the police station is across the road. She said, none of them going to come and lock up a old lady for boiling ganja.
So you see,
And I said, but how you get it?
Place
She
to
told
really
me
have that conversation with the rest of the regional leaders.
Huh?
As you having all that information, you're in the perfect spot to have that conversation with the rest of the regional
I
leaders.
talk about this thing all the time. I talk about it. In fact, when I asked my mother, and I will tell you this because she's now dead, I could talk it. I refer to it in Parliament without calling her name, but people know what I was saying. I said, but the police will, suppose the police meet the guy who is bringing it for you. He said, well, I told him if they catch him, I will pay the fine. That she will pay the fine. I said, but suppose they jail him. She said, I told him that you will free him. I said, but Mommy, I can't free somebody who the court sent to jail. So I make those points to show you that there are things about marijuana. And this is why we have a medical cannabis industry growing. Doesn't mean that the end of the medical cannabis rainbow, there's a pot of gold. I'm not saying that. I've told the parliament that. But it's an option. I believe Big Ras probably want to plant some ganja, are involved with the medical cannabis industry. We have you're invited to come here, or I could get and send our laws for you. I have my press secretary here. He could send the laws for you as to what we're doing. We are not reckless. We are just sensible as to how we are proceeding.
As you made that point, though, as an economist, and this is my final question, as an economist, what do you think is the immediate to medium and long-term future, the future hold for the region's economic recovery post-COVID?
It's a difficult time. It's a difficult time because we have all these pre-existing strategic challenges, and we have now this essential lockdown with COVID. And it's going to take, not just here, but the whole world, it's going to take a while. But we just have to be steadfast. We have to do the things. We have to look at this matter in four interconnected ways. The challenge from COVID is health, economic, social, and security. And we have to do our agriculture, we have to do our fisheries, we have to do our tourism, because it will come back up. It can't be like this from now until the end. But we can expect on an ongoing basis problems with pandemics. And we just have to prepare ourselves for these things and to live well with COVID and to manage the risks. carefully, not to think of COVID as HIV and AIDS in the early days or Ebola. I mean, we must not forget that only a small percentage of persons who get COVID, very small percentage, get very sick, and only a smaller percentage of that who will actually die. And and even when you die, you would not necessarily die from it. You may die with it. So we have to put the issue in perspective. It's a serious and dangerous illness. I mean virus, but it is not a virus which is deadly as in the early days, like HIV and AIDS or like Ebola. And I don't know if we are going to get a vaccine which would get rid of this virus, but it may make us being able to live well with it and so on. Put the thing in some proper scientific perspective. But at the end of the day, we have been through a lot of tribulations and trials in this region, and we will triumph over this. Now, the first 3 months for St. Vincent and the Grenadines, we did very well. And then our revenues in the last 3 months have taken a nosedive. In April, we were more or less even with last year. In June, we were down 20% with our revenues for the central government. In May we were down 20%. In June, we were down 8%. So by the time at the end of June, we are more or less even between the good part in the first quarter and this COVID quarter, which wasn't good. And as we go forward, we keep the particular levels, accepted levels, while we try and build back. I am not, and we have a program, we did a stimulus package, and so on and so forth. And another occasion I could talk to you in detail about that. I know Grenada did one. And Keith has some very good advisors, and he himself is an imaginative and an experienced leader. So I think you're going to weather it too. The one which is most severely affected clearly is Antigua, because Antigua is the most tourism based of the economies in the currency union. But it's a challenging period, a real difficult period, and you have to have a lot of experience, and you have to have gone through a lot of wilderness years to be able to weather the storm. And naturally, I will tell the people of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, you don't put an untried pair of hands. You don't. You don't move. You don't leave. You don't move from one ship to the other in midstream. No, you can't do that.
I like that, bouncer. You definitely did well. I like that. That's a wonderful
No,
way to end.
I understand. The program is very popular, so I think they're hearing it too.
Yes, they are.
And I go to the people this year for a renewal of my mandate, and I'm very confident that we'll be re-elected.
I I look forward and to having you back on the show again. When we get closer to that point, we'd love to really hear some more plans that you have for St.
Any,
Vincent and Grenadines. So looking forward
any,
to.
anytime. And as as Big Ras say, you're a beautiful Ethiopian woman.
Thank you so much. Big Earth! Let me say a big bye before I go. Big Earth, I gotta come check you, all right? Don't forget anytime you're in Greece, you check me as well.
God bless. All right then. Take care.
Much.
All
All
the
right.
best to you.
Thanks so much for checking in with us.
Thanks.
All right. And we're talking about us going way over time today, but really couldn't help it. But nonetheless, guys, thanks so much for coming into the room. Tomorrow we have another interesting ladies' room lined up for y'all. We will be joined by Lyndon Gardiner, the founder of Inter Caribbean Airways. He will be joining us in the room tomorrow to bring us up to speed on his airline. So make sure you guys are here for that. Another ladies' room. Again, thank you so much, everybody, for being part of it, and looking forward to having you here tomorrow once again. Stay tuned, Power 95. We got more coming your way.